Her name is Aliyah Raiyaan. She is a passionate speaker, author, and advocate for compassion within the Muslim community. She founded Solace UK, an incredible organization that supports revert women as they find their footing after shahada, giving them care, understanding, and a true sense of belonging. She's also the co-founder of Honest Tea Talk, a powerful platform that isn't afraid to have raw, unfiltered conversations about the struggles Muslims go through, helping so many people find healing and growth. Her personal journey is deeply inspiring, from a difficult childhood to a life-changing moment that led her to Islam to becoming an international speaker and published author with Penguin. Through it all, she has shown how vulnerability, dua, and service can bring us closer to Allah and help us live lives of meaning and purpose. In this episode, Sister Aliyah shares her story of faith, resilience, and service while unpacking what it really means to leave behind a legacy that draws hearts closer to Allah. If you love conversations about personal growth, faith, and finding meaning through life struggles, make sure you subscribe on your favorite platform. Every subscription helps us bring on more inspiring guests like this. Now, without further ado, Sister Aliyah Raiyaan. How would you describe your mission?
Oh, how would I describe my mission? I, my mission is actually quite simple. I know I am here as a servant of Allah to worship Him, and that's our mission. You know, every single believer's mission is to worship Allah and to return our souls back to Him in the best possible state. But I think my individual mission as Aliyah is to serve the needy, to serve them by giving them a voice, to make them feel seen and heard, those who are maybe the underdogs of society. But I definitely feel like my mission is deeply rooted in khidmah, service. And that isn't separated from the mission that every single Muslim has. That's my chosen path towards worshipping Allah. That's my chosen path in aiming to return my soul to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where He will be pleased with me. So I think, yeah, my mission is just service.
What would you say are the experiences from childhood that led you to become that person with such a mission?
These are deep questions. As soon as you asked me that question, I actually, in my mind's eye, I saw myself as a young, well, at the time, the term was half caste, yeah, half black, half white, but we don't use that term anymore. It's derogatory. Mixed race, young girl in East London. And so the image that came to mind was that every Christmas, my mum, on Christmas Day, right, we would wake up early, my brother and I, and on Christmas Day, we would venture out to this hall that wasn't too far from where we lived in East London. And we would plate up hundreds of plates with Christmas dinner, wrap them in foil, load up a trolley, and deliver Christmas dinner to the elderly who were spending Christmas Day on their own. And I was really, really young, and we did that for a number of years. And I remember going into, some of these pensioners' homes, and it was heartbreaking. Not only were they alone, but they were living in really, really bad conditions. And the smile on their face when they used to see us, on Christmas Day with this meal, this hot meal wrapped in foil, and we would make them a cup of tea, or maybe kind of wash some dishes that were in the sink and just sit and talk with them on Christmas Day itself, when actually Christmas Day is about, you kind of celebrating as a child. It was just everything. And I think even at a very young age, I knew that this is life. This is what it means to live, to be of service to others who are in need. And I think it definitely started from that. And I obviously wasn't Muslim at that time, but that was so meaningful. And as the years went by and we used to do this repeatedly on Christmas Day, I used to look forward to it. I used to look forward to it until my parents divorced, and then we moved to a different part of London. And that kind of came to an end. But it stayed with me that there are people in this world who are alone, who are struggling, suffering, and what can we do to make their days a little bit better?
You mentioned your parents divorced. How did that impact you?
Oh gosh, how did it not impact me? I think that's the question. How did it not impact me? It at the time, when I was 13 years old, um, I don't think I could see or even perhaps feel the impact, but certainly as the years passed by, um, I definitely was impacted by it. I think more so in terms of the way that my father, um, how the relationship with my father changed. It was already not too good, but it became worse and it then became non-existent. And that was because he actually blamed me for the divorce between him and my mum. And that was really, oh gosh, I don't want to get emotional. But that was really, really hard. And actually, subhanAllah, it's interesting because, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to go deep. Prior to recording this episode, that I went to see my family. I'm here in Nigeria and I'm half Nigerian. I went to see my auntie, my uncle, and my auntie's husband. And I sat down on the couch next to my auntie, and we were just talking about lots and lots of things. And then she, I was teasing her. I like to tease her a lot. And I put my arm around her, and she just turned to me, and she just said, she's quite a tough cookie, She just turned to me. She said to me, "I love you." And I became so emotional. Hearing her say those three words made me feel so emotional because growing up, my father was very, very, very harsh with me. I was actually telling my auntie today that I never heard him say, "I love you." I cannot remember him ever hugging me. He was very, very harsh, overly strict, radically strict. And so that was the relationship that I had with him. That was in my childhood. And then kind of fast forward, when my mum decided that she could no longer stay married to him, for him to tell me at the age of 13 that the divorce is your fault. Why? Because I knew my mum had told me that she could no longer continue living in the type of marriage that she was living in. She was completely broken. And I just wanted her to be well. And he blamed me for that. That impacted me. So I wouldn't say it was the divorce that impacted me, because I think, especially now, in hindsight, as an adult with a little bit more wisdom, maybe, I can see that that was the best step for her, because I don't know if she would even be alive had she stayed. But the way in which he blamed me for the divorce, that impacted me. That impacted me in so many ways. It left a deep scar that I feel entered into lots of relationships, friends, marriage, even, points in my relationship with my children. And it was only until I actually sought therapy for something else where all of this stuff, emerged. And that's what happens, right? You get to the deeply rooted issues, that I realized that, oh gosh, wow, I actually have been carrying a lot of guilt and shame because of those words that he used at the time when they divorced. So yeah, it definitely impacted me.
Have you healed?
Have I healed? Oh, we are going deep. Have I healed? I think I've healed to a certain extent. Interestingly, when I was driving back to the hotel from my auntie's, I had my uncle drop me back. And I don't really have a relationship with my father. We touch base now and again. And I'm okay with that because I think there's a lot of kind of pain and hurt still there. But my uncle said something. He said, you've got to stay in touch with him, which I do. I'm Muslim. We have to uphold the ties of kinship. And then he said, because I know you've forgiven him. And I stopped him and I said, well, actually, I don't know if I have. I don't know if I have. And he was kind of like a bit taken aback by that. But the truth is that I think healing, the process of healing, I don't think that you are simply a person who is unhealed and is healed, becomes healed. I think that actually it's a bit of a roller coaster, that at some stages of your life, maybe you feel healed. And then there are other things that happen where maybe you're triggered and then it just opens up the wound again. And then you might go through therapy or you might have a certain experience and it closes the wound and then it reopens again. And I think this idea of being healed, I don't think it's as black and white as that. I think it's a journey. And I think, like I said, the wounds and the scars that we have open and close, open and close.
So it's like you're always healing. It's not a destination.
Definitely. I think I think it's a process, and I think we go through being healed and unhealed, and that's just life. It's dunya.
I feel it's really important for people to have a fatherly figure growing up, some male role model. How were you able to fill that void growing up?
I didn't. There was a void. There was a void. And I think I sought to fill that void with so many other things. But it's impossible. And I absolutely agree with you. I think a father figure is very, very important for a child. For me, it just wasn't filled. There has always been a gap. And I think that's why when my auntie said to me, I love you, I immediately started to well up and I tried to fight back the tears. And then my auntie's husband, my uncle, said, you are home. And oh my gosh, it just fell, and I was just crying, and I was like trying to stop myself, and I was just crying and crying and crying. And I think that's because those were the words I wanted to hear from my father, and I was hearing them from his sister. And it really, really, it really touched something very, very deep inside. And when I gathered myself together and I kind of got over it, made a joke about it. But really, I knew at that point that I needed that from him, and I didn't get that, and what that has meant in my life. But at the same time, alhamdulillah, I feel like through Islam, having become Muslim, having really I love my Lord. I love Allah. I'm trying to be the best Muslim I can be. I make mistakes. I sin. I've got a lot of shortcomings and a lot of growth. In my journey ahead. but I'm in a good place because my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and my desire to be beloved to him has really grounded me. So there is that void. I think there will always be that void. And I think tonight kind of demonstrated that. But then that's okay. I hurt, I'm in pain, and that was then. And now I'm in this podcast with you, and that's the nature of life. You have highs and lows.
You became Muslim about 25 years ago?
Yes.
What brought you to Islam?
Oh gosh. It's funny because I have been asked this question, my gosh, just like hundreds of times over the years. And I used to kind of tell my story, and it used to be an hour long, and then it kind of decreased to about 30 minutes and then 15 minutes. Now I'm like, it's on YouTube. I have a link. Towards Eternity, interviewed me, and it's on YouTube. But in a nutshell, as a result of actually my parents' divorce, I became a bit, well, not a bit, very lost. Actually, prior to their divorce, things were really, really bad at home. They were fighting a lot. Mum was depressed. She was on antidepressants. Dad was just really, really not very, he just wasn't a kind individual to her or to us, very distant. And as an adult now, I wonder what he has gone through to, for him to be like that. And I think he must have his own trauma, to be honest. So yeah, I had a friend at school, and she was a practicing Muslim, and I was my crazy wild self. We were completely, like polar opposites, but we became really close friends. And I knew that she was a child of a domestic violent home. And so we would kind of talk about what was going on at home. And I used to observe, and I used to think, like, where's her peace coming from? She was just at peace. Like, things were worse at home for her than they were for me, but she had this level of peace. And I just used to kind of envy that, but admire it at the same time. And she would tell me that it's because of her faith, her religion. Now, I grew up, in East London around lots of Muslims, but I didn't know too much about Islam. But I actually, out of my love for her, started to look into Islam to try to prove her wrong. Yeah, I was very, very arrogant, and I started to become convinced, and that was really, really scary because I didn't want to change my life. And the type of person that I am is that when I believe in something and I'm passionate about something, oh my gosh, like I will go to the moon and back. Yeah, I give it like 200%. That's just the type of person that I am. So I think that's what terrified me. So I knew that I was changing. I knew that I was actually becoming rationally convinced. And that would mean, because this is who I am, that I would change the way I dress, the way I ate, the way I function, the way I live, and I didn't want to change. So I cut her out. I removed any form of Islam, any reminder of Islam from my life, threw away leaflets, cassettes. There were cassettes at the time. And I remember one of my kids saw a picture and said, "Oh, what is that?" It made me feel like a dinosaur. And just didn't want to think, and I'm a deep thinker, but I didn't want to think. And that went on for some time. I was able to, out of sight, out of mind kind of thing, until actually one weekend I couldn't stop thinking about Islam and, the existence of God, and the fact that the Prophet ﷺ, it's rationally proven that he is a messenger of Allah, so, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I went for a walk just to clear my head. I was actually revising for exams that weekend. So I went for a walk to clear my head, to be able to revise again. And I came to a road that I would frequently cross. And I couldn't cross. I just stood there. And I could see people crossing, cars, driving across this road. And I just stood there and I just thought, oh my gosh, if I cross this road and I get hit by a car and I die, knowing what I know, what would that mean for me in the next life? And it was at that moment that I just knew. I believed, come on, Aliyah, you are a principled young woman. What are you doing? Ran back home, picked up the phone. My friend hadn't heard from me for ages, and said to her, I can't anymore. I have to take my shahada. I need to become Muslim. And I did that Monday.
That is so interesting. And are you still in touch with this friend of yours?
Yeah.
I'm sure she knows that she's the reason why.
Oh, yeah. I think, yeah, the whole community knows that she's the reason why. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward her. We're not in touch as much as we used to be. Life has taken over. But, I often have said to her, as well as others have also said to her, you have no idea how much reward is coming your way. Yeah. Obviously, I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts anything that I'm doing, whether that's privately or publicly. But I pray that she has a full share in reward for that, because she was very patient with me at a very critical point in my life. Alhamdulillah.
You have an organization called Solace UK.
Yeah.
That supports women who convert to Islam and face challenges. Mm-hmm. What is Solace UK?
So Solace is a UK registered charity that supports women who have embraced Islam and find themselves in difficulty. So what we do is we recognize that there are so many organizations. And charities that, mashallah, do amazing work in calling non-Muslims to Islam. But at the time when I set up Solace, there were a lack of organizations that focused on life after Shahada. And actually, the Shahada is the beginning. It's the starting point. It's where this individual has taken such a courageous step to become Muslim and now needs so much support, so much compassion, so much understanding, no judgment, to enable them to retain their faith and to thrive, within Islam. But what I realized back then was that, when I set up Solace, was that it was almost like Shahada was a trophy. A Shahada was a trophy, and that's it. We've got the trophy. Let's move on. No, that's the beginning. And so Solace basically supports women who have embraced Islam and find themselves in difficulty, because we believe that we want these women to continue to live, to believe in Islam, to live by Islam, and to thrive in Islam. And that requires a whole lot of support. So we deal with all the difficulties, challenges, issues that can come with someone choosing to embrace Islam. And there are so many.
What are the most common challenges? And how do you overcome them?
Yeah, some of the most common challenges I feel are loneliness, going through a bit of an identity crisis, relationships kind of changing as a result of, embracing Islam, particularly with non-Muslim family, non-Muslim relatives, being ostracized, abandoned, marital difficulties, Muslims, obviously this is in the UK, but this applies even Nigeria. Well, in the UK, Muslims are a minority, but within that, reverts are a further minority. And unfortunately, they're taken advantage of when it comes to marriage. So because a revert woman does not have a family, a Muslim family behind her, she is often subjected to really bad treatment, or will meet Muslim men who have an agenda, and it isn't necessarily
A good one.
a good one, right? So the issues are so many, and so we have a wide range of services that deal with the aftermath of some of these issues, but also some of our services act as a preventative measure. So one of the services that we have is the one-to-one support service, where a revert can come with any issue, and she's kind of like, at point A, and she decides that she wants to be at point B. So it's very much a person-centered approach. And she's assigned a trained one-to-one support worker who basically helps her set goals, listens to her, in a non-judgmental space, and then sets goals with her, and really just helps her, gently guides her towards moving towards B. And that's really, really been, I guess it's like our flagship service. It's really, really been effective, alhamdulillah. Another example is that we have the Wali panel service. So it's a panel of brothers and sisters who are of a certain standing within the community, and they act as they almost act as a surrogate family figure for the revert sister. So they will do all the referencing, vetting, checks, facilitation of meetings when the sister wants to get married, raising any red flags, really kind of ensuring that she is well informed. They're essentially doing the job that a Muslim family would do when when a woman wants to get married. Alhamdulillah, it's been really effective. So there are lots of things that we do.
What was your family's reaction like when you became Muslim?
So my dad, oh gosh, he's so funny. He said to me, which is it's just like, I'll tell you what he said. He said, "Why do you want to adopt?" And I know you're probably going to fall off your seat as I say this. Why do you want to adopt the religion of Arabs and Asians? Right? I know. That was what he said.
Okay.
Really bizarre, because we know how prominent Islam is in Africa, and the rich history of Islam in Africa. It was really bizarre. So that was his reaction, and he just was not happy at all. Mum, and I was young when I became Muslim. I was very passionate, overzealous, and I told my mum that I had become Muslim by knocking on the front door the day I took my shahada, wearing hijab. She opened the door and saw me in hijab. Silly. Really, really silly. I should have had a conversation with her. She just didn't. She opened the door and just looked at me like,
what's going on?
What is going on? And not the best way to tell your mum that you've become Muslim. She was not happy with my choice. She thought it was a phase, which then turned into trying to make my life difficult. She was married to someone who hated Islam. He managed to brainwash her into adopting his very Islamophobic beliefs. And at the age of 17, she looked me in the eyes and said, "I've done my job, you're on your own."
Wow.
Yeah. Out.
How did you navigate that?
Oh, that was a really tough part of my life. That was really, really hard. Can you imagine? I mean, my daughter is 20, and even though she's quite independent, and she still needs me to a certain extent, so to be a lot younger than the age that my daughter is now, and to forget about certain aspirations and just have to focus on surviving. That was really tough. But I think also to be rejected by your mum is really, really difficult. Really, really difficult, especially at that age. It was hard. It was very, very hard.
How old were you again?
I became Muslim when I was 16.
So where were you staying when your mom rejected you?
Oh, that's a long story, but I ended up staying in so many different places. So I remember there was actually one revert sister. She was an Irish revert sister. She had 6 kids, I believe, at the time, and I stayed in like a loft room for some time. I went from place to place, but yeah, and then I ended up getting a job, and I had a room in a house, and then I shared a flat with 3 other girls, and yeah, lots of different places.
So when did you eventually get back in touch with your mom?
I got back in touch with my mum when I was, I think, 18 or 19, if I remember correctly. And that was because I was actually in hospital. I had um, I had gone through surgery, and at that point, I was completely broken because I had gone through so many trials as a new Muslim. And I called her from my hospital bed, and I said, "Please come and take me home." And she did. And when I got home, I stopped practicing Islam.
For how long?
For about a year and a half, 2 years.
Then what brought you back again?
What brought me back again? It's such an interesting journey, right? So obviously, it's I'm kind of giving you a summarized version of events, but basically there were from the time I took my shahada up until the point of me calling my mum from hospital, there were a number of really, really difficult challenges that I went through, and I was alone and vulnerable and young. And by the point that I had called my mum, I had reached capacity. I was completely broken in so many ways. Um, and so when I went home, I was just relieved to be safe, um, and just home, because I had lost a lot of myself in the beginning of my journey, and yeah, so I stopped practicing because I just couldn't cope. I still maintained my belief though, and I think that is due to the type of dawah that I was kind of given. It was really, um, we would debate, we would look at different arguments in terms of about the existence of God and so on. So I became rationally convinced. So I maintained my belief, but I didn't want any reminder of Islam. It was too much because I had gone through so much, if that makes sense. So yeah, so then, after a while, I started working and just kind of went back to my old lifestyle. But then there was a void. There was a huge void. Something was missing. I was pretty much free. I could do whatever I wanted. But then deep down there was something missing. And I knew it was, Islam. I knew it was my relationship with Allah. And I remember one day deciding to wrap my hair. I mean, mashallah, you're quite young, but Erica Badu style, so you might know, it's got African style, right? Yeah. And so that was like the first step. And then I would take myself to a local park with my English translation of the Quran, and I would read one page. That's it. And I would walk, and I would breathe, and I would contemplate, and I would reflect, and I would make dua. And I did that consistently. And that was what kind of brought me back. And I came back to the deen in a very, very different way. It was such a sweet time. where I kind of really prioritized my return, but it was all about my relationship with Allah. And it was beautiful, it was amazing. And here I am. Rest is history.
Then further down in the story, your mom embraced Islam as well.
So yeah, mum embraced Islam. So my mum is an avid reader. She loves history. And one day she calls me and she says, there's this woman that I've come across on YouTube, and she is an amazing speaker. And I said, what's her name? She said, Aisha Prime. And I'm thinking, I've never heard of her. Let me do a bit of a search here. So I searched her up, and she's an African American sister. I'm not sure if she is a revert or not. And just watched a couple of her videos, and mashallah, I could see why my mum was kind of drawn to her. So she was telling me about all these videos that she'd watched. And then I thought, okay, it's interesting that she's watching these videos. And then she comes and says to me, oh my gosh, I found this series. It's incredible. And it's by a sheikh. And I'm like, huh? She's watching videos by a sheikh? What, like, which sheikh? And she said, oh, let me find his name. And it was Sheikh Khalid Yasin. And she was blown away by his content. Like she in a very short space of time, she was like watching video after video after video, and then she would message me or email me or call me. And there's a series that he did, I think, called Historical Jesus, and she just was fascinated by that, really, really fascinated. So anyway, she keeps going on about Sheikh Khalid Yasin and how her thoughts are changing, and her mindset is changing, her heart's changing, and she would share things with me that she was learning, and I could see that she was on a journey, and I could see the transformation. And I just took a step back, right? And I just allowed her to share with me, and I didn't say anything. Obviously, I'm making dua in the background, right? And then there came a point where I could see that she was like really changing. I thought, I need to find Sheikh Khalid Yasin. So I put out a message on my Facebook and my WhatsApp broadcast list, and I said, does anyone have Sheikh Khalid Yasin's contact details? I need to reach him. I didn't say why. And then someone said to me, oh, his number is on his Facebook page. I thought, great. And his email address. So I got his email address, emailed him, and it said, look, this is what's happening. My mum is watching your stuff. I'm a revert of X amount of years. Would it be possible to speak to you? And he emailed back 20 minutes later.
Wow.
I know. Like, we know how busy Sheikh Khalid Yasin is, right? 20 minutes later, he emails me back. I couldn't believe it. So we arranged to speak. I tell him about my mum, tell him about my own story, tell him about my mum. And he said, right, what we're going to do is we're going to do something. I want you to tell your mum that I'm a researcher and I just want to ask her a few questions about her journey. He said, but don't tell her it's me. Okay? And just arrange a Zoom call. And then he said to me, what's your mum's name? And I said, well, her Italian name is Giuseppina, but in Europe, it's translated as Josephine. He said, that's my mum's name. And he said, my mum is like 90 something and she's like dying and she's on her way out, and your mum's on her way in, inshallah. So anyway, we arranged this Zoom meeting, and there are no cameras. So it's me, my mum, and Sheikh Khalid Yasin. And he's asking her a few questions. And, this is like the king of dawah, right? So I'm there and I'm just observing the way in which he's interacting with my mum. And pretty much in a very short space of time, he gets her to confirm her belief without her realizing that she has. And it was an amazing conversation. And it was really amazing for me to see him in action, and it was great. So at the end of the call, he says to my mum, because on Zoom,
Yeah.
remember there are no videos, so no one can see anyone, but it says the name, right? So his name says it's spelled SKY, Sky, short for Sheikh Khalid Yassin. So he said to my mum, "Do you know what Sky stands for?" She said, "Oh no, I have no idea." And he said, "Sheikh Khalid Yassin." She said, "Oh." She didn't hear him properly. So he asked again, he said, "Did you hear what I said?" She said, "No, I'm really sorry." And he said, "Sky stands for Sheikh Khalid Yassin." She said, "Oh, no, it's not you." And she was over the moon, but she was embarrassed at the same time. She said, "If I had known it was you, I would have, I don't know, I don't know what she would have done differently." Anyway, following on from that, we had another, I think one or two more Zoom sessions, and then she took her shahada from him in one of the Zoom sessions, which I've recorded.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
You have a YouTube channel called The Honesty Talk, which touches on raw, unfiltered topics in the Muslim community. Why do you think it's so important to bring these types of conversations to light?
Well, when Honesty Talk was started, there wasn't anything like it out there. And alhamdulillah, our intention was that people would continue the conversation and they would have these conversations. And mashallah, you've got so many kind of shows, podcasts, that started after Honesty Talk. And I remember a few of them said, watching you guys gave us permission and kind of courage to do so, which is fantastic. But the reason why we started Honesty Talk is because we felt that um, there were so many taboo subjects um, that really needed to be brought to light um, in order for solutions to be found, at an individual level, but I think at a community level as well. And so yeah, we wanted to have these discussions publicly so that others could have those discussions, whether it was as couples, whether it was as, parent and child, friends, families, groups. And that is actually what happened, what ended up happening. And through that, you know, um, people found themselves, they understood perhaps some things that maybe they couldn't give time, they couldn't give it time, there were things that they wouldn't give time to because it was deemed inappropriate to even discuss those things. But when they did that, they found solutions, they found growth, they were able to embark on therapy and heal and so on. So yeah, that's the reason why we started Honesty Talk. But kind of going back, before we started, I watched Red Table Talk, and I remember when Red Table Talk came out, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is fresh. This is so interesting. Wouldn't it be amazing if there was a Muslim equivalent? And I remember going on Facebook and saying, "Oh, I've come across Red Table Talk. Please, someone get three sisters together and do a Muslim version." And I was very busy at the time. I was hoping that someone else would take it on. But everyone was like, "Aliyah, you need to do this." And I thought, okay. So I took it to Istikhara, and then I approached Layinka, and she prayed Istikhara and she said yes. And then she suggested Sumaya, and yeah, and then the rest is history.
What have been the greatest lessons you've learned from the Honesty Talk, from the conversations there?
See, it's interesting because we're about to film another season, right? And nobody knows that.
Now they do.
No, depends when this comes out. Do you know what? I'll be honest with you. I've changed a lot. I have changed so much. Season 1 was filmed December 2018. Yeah, December 2000. Yes, December 2018. I've changed so much in that time. So I think one of the greatest lessons, I think, for me is that what I deemed to be true at that time, or what I deemed to be important at that time, and the opinions that I had, I can grow from that. I can change. You know, we're fluid individuals. We're not stagnant. We don't just remain as we are. And so I think I haven't watched some of the old episodes. I know some of the others have recently. Like I can't bring myself to watch some of the really. Like I haven't actually. But I know if I did, I think I would be like, oh gosh, how I've changed so much. And I think the lesson in that is that we're doing the best that we can at every single point of our lives. We're doing the best that we can with who we are, with the resources that we have, and that's okay. And this is where we are now, and we're doing the best that we can. And in the future, we'll be doing the best that we can. And it's okay to change. It's okay to change your opinions. We don't have to remain rigid, you know. In fact, I think that's where growth lies. You know, just moving and flowing, and yeah.
What's your advice to people who would like to create safe spaces to have such deep, important conversations?
Choose your tribe carefully. See, a space is just a space. A space is made sacred when you have the right individuals within that space. So I think if anyone is wanting and craving for a space where there is no judgment, a space where they can share vulnerably, the first step is make dua. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it. You have to, you know, because He will bring the right individuals, specifically aligned with who you are and what you need, right? But yeah, you need to think about who you want to invite into that space, and that's when the space becomes special.
And what are you meant to look out for when choosing your tribe?
Do you know what? We're all a work in progress, every single one of us. And I think it's choosing people that also see themselves as works in progress. And then those who are courageous in being vulnerable. Because when vulnerability is shared and expressed, amazing things happen. Amazing things.
I remember reading in your book, you also talked about the importance of being vulnerable to God, to Allah. And I found that so insightful because I think many of us hide parts of ourselves. Like whenever we want to pray, we don't share everything, maybe because of guilt, like sins or mistakes that we've made in the past. And we're like, I don't think I should ask for this, or I should ask for that, or I should be this vulnerable because I'm not this perfect being as I believe I should be. Why do you feel it's so important to have that vulnerable relationship with Allah?
I think it's really important because He knows you. He knows you better than you know your own self. And our relationship with Allah is meant to be the most intimate, the most vulnerable, the closest, you know, because He is the only one who sees us at every single point of our journey. You know, sometimes you're alone in your room and it's just you, but it's not just you. It's you, but it's the Lord of the worlds observing you attentively, intimately. And so when you acknowledge that and you internalize that, you realize that how can you not be vulnerable with Him? When there's that level of closeness, right? How can you not? And I think the importance of doing so is that, you see, when two human beings are vulnerable with each other, that's where emotional intimacy is cultivated, right? But the same goes with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is already close to us. The only time that we do not feel close to him is when we turn away, when we step away. So the fact that when we know and internalize that he is always close to us, then immediately upon that realization, that should initiate vulnerability. And honestly, there is nothing that fills you except by being vulnerable with your Lord through all the seasons of your life.
You've written 2 books, Ramadan Reflections and The Power of Dua. What do you think in Ramadan Reflections resonated most with people? Because I heard it eventually became a Sunday Times bestseller.
I think because of the hype, in all honesty, I think it was like Penguin published guided journal Ramadan time, you know? Maybe that was the first thing. Secondly, it was the first time a traditional publisher was publishing an Islamic spiritual book.
First time.
Like in that way, because my book quotes Quran and Sunnah heavily, right? It quotes scholars heavily. It is about the journey of the heart towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There has been nothing like it published mainstream. So this was like new, yeah. But also I think, and from what readers have shared with me, is that I was very vulnerable in the book. You see vulnerability? What it could lead to.
Yeah.
It would have become a Sunday Times bestseller. No, I'm joking. But no, I don't know, I was. And I remember as I was writing it, I knew I was taking a risk. But alhamdulillah.
Why did you write it though?
I had to write it. You know, a friend of mine said to me, subhanAllah, she said, after it was published, she said, Aliyah, you know, you wrote that book with your heart before you wrote it with your pen. All of your experiences to date had to occur in order for you to have written that book. She was absolutely right. I had to write it. Everything had been placed strategically in order for me to write that book.
What of the power of dua? Why do you feel it's important to write a book about the importance of that?
Well, I love dua. I absolutely love dua. Dua has to be our default, right? We have to turn to dua first before anything else, before taking any step, any action. And the reason why we're not seeing things change is because we're trying everything else and then we're making dua. But dua is a game changer. And I kind of give the example that, you know, in Ramadan 2022, I made dua that Allah, you know, allow me to write and publish a book before I leave this world. And oh Allah, allow it to be a book that draws hearts and souls back to you. And Ya Rabbi, because everything is possible with you, I want it to be held by hands in corners of the world I haven't visited yet. I made dua. Allah brought the publisher to my door. What could I have done? I could have written a few chapters. I could have sent my manuscript to like 50 different publishers, probably rejected by all of them. Maybe not, I don't know. But then look, not sometimes. Let me say that again. When you make dua first, you are not going the long way round towards what you need or want. You're going straight to the one who knows who you are, who knows where you've come from, who knows where you're at and what's coming, and who knows exactly what you need. And he will bring things to you, or he will open up paths for you in order for you to achieve what you need or want.
You might not know this, but, or you might. The first time I heard of you was when either you or your team sent me an email.
Okay.
But it was with your name.
Did you reply? That's the question.
I did. 2 months later.
Oh, no, this is unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Okay, so let me explain what the whole scenario. You sent me your team sent me an email asking me to read your book, The Power of Dua, and that you're going to send me a copy of it. And I remember opening the email, and at that time, I must confess, I wasn't the type of person to read books on Islam. And the reason for that was because I had this belief that all these Islamic books, after reading a few of them, that all these Islamic books are just filled with hadiths and Quranic verses, but not enough context and no practicality. And I was like, nah, I'm not going to read this. And then my mom got the book, and then she was reading it, and she was like, Raiyaan, this is a really good book. This is a really good book. And at the time she was telling me that, I also wanted to improve my deen. And so I was like, you know what, since she's been hyping this book for so long, let me respond to the email. But that was like 2 months later. So I was like, yes, sure, you can send the book, but I didn't get a response because I was like, of course, I wouldn't get a response. It's 2 months later. And then I just asked my mom, can I read yours? This may sound extreme, but I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I feel like I became a real Muslim after reading The Power of Dua.
Oh, thank you. Jazakallah khair.
Like, I've been doing all the practices, but The Power of Dua is like exactly what I've been looking for. Because it's filled with practicality. It's not just hadiths or Quranic verses, it's very practical. And I remember reading it and I was just thinking to myself, this is one of the best books I've ever read.
Oh, thank you.
And all the books I read are just personal development, always like Atomic Habits, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F, and etc., etc. Then I read yours and I was like, this is such a beautiful book. Like, it was so well written. And I'm not saying this because you told me to, or because I want people to buy. Like whoever's listening or watching, I hope they buy this book because this is what will help them on their path. And it's just, and I don't know why I didn't read it sooner. And I still have the book with me. I haven't given my mom.
She told me.
Yeah,
she told me.
I've highlighted so many pages. Like, there was so many insights inside the book that I'm like, this is so good. Like, this is just so valuable. So I can't thank you enough for writing that book. I haven't yet read Ramadan Reflections, which I told my mom, please, if you have the book with you, I need that one too.
I think she has it.
I think she does. Yeah. And I'll find the book because The Power of Dua is perfect, honestly speaking. And I know you said it's not a Sunday Times bestseller. Well, it's an international bestseller for me.
Alhamdulillah.
In my perspective. And now you're working on writing another book.
Yes.
Which, understandably, you said you're not going to tell us the title yet. Can you at least tell us what it's about?
I can't.
Everything is going to have to be a surprise.
Everything is a surprise.
Okay. Well, I guess
you can take a guess if you want. But I'm not going to confirm or deny. Maybe off camera.
Okay.
If you get it right, off camera.
All right. Without even reading it yet, I already can say I know it's going to be a hit.
Inshallah.
For me, once again. Even if it's not an international bestseller or...
Let's just say this. There are a number of brothers and sisters that I have interviewed for the book. And I have become so emotional during their interviews. And I know that it's really going to affect others too. Yeah.
You were approached by Penguin, which is seen as one of the biggest publishing companies. How did that even happen?
So, as you know, Ramadan 2022, I was making dua to write and publish a book. Yes, so then I had a message on Instagram, and it was from a woman, and it went to my request folder, and that's, you know, when you don't follow each other. I hadn't checked that request folder for months, but that day I did, and I read her message, and I read it again and again and again, and I thought it was a hoax, right? I thought they're trying to trick me into clicking on something, which then, I don't know, does something to my computer, or they want money or something. So I asked her to email me, because if she was who she said she was, then it would be a legitimate email address, right? So she did email me. I went straight to check her email address, and it was. And the message that she had sent on Instagram was, "Hi, Aliyah. I'm a publisher from Penguin Random House, and we were wondering if you'd be interested in writing a book for us." SubhanAllah.
Did you have a blog?
No. I used to have a homeschooling blog, like, you know, many, many moons ago, but no, just posting my reflections on social media.
Like just video format?
Yeah, that she actually said. So we ended up having a meeting. It was a Teams meeting, and I said, "How did you find me?" And she said, "We have these listening tools on social media." So she said, "We came across your page, and then I left your page and went to another, I don't know, maybe Muslim writer's page. Something kept drawing me back to you, and I'd leave. Something kept drawing me back to you, and I stuck with you. And I said, no, this is the one." And I said, "But how did you know? How did you know, like, I would be?" She said, "Just call it instinct." And I said, "You know, that's so strange. What do you want me to write about?" And she said, "Well, we want you to write a book ahead of Ramadan." This was July. Ramadan was going to be like March, following March. "We want you to write a book about Ramadan, connected to Ramadan in some way." And I said, "You know, this is amazing, because 2 months ago in Ramadan, I was making this dua, and here you are telling me that you want me to write a book ahead of next Ramadan." And she said, "Ooh, spooky." And I said, "No, this is the power of my Lord."
On a personal level, what has been your toughest day, and how did you get through it?
So there was a period of time where I was hit with a really personal test, and it probably was my most challenging test to date. It's so personal that I can't really talk about it, but I can tell you where I was kind of at and how I was feeling. I had hit rock bottom. And nothing and no one could help me. I was like alone with this. And I knew that the only way that I would feel better and I would come out of this really dark hole was by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Were you a Muslim at this time?
Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't when I was a new Muslim, it was later on. Actually, this was one of the tests that led me to start writing again, sharing my pieces on social media, which then, you know, allowed me to be discovered by the publisher. So there was something very beautiful that came out of this very, very dark and challenging test. But my relationship with Allah changed. It changed as a result of that, because I literally relied upon Him. I called out to Him. I cried to Him. I begged Him. He was my only solace. It was a really, really hard time, but it was sweet at the same time. It's strange, isn't it? Because it's like the pain is so intense and severe. At the same time, the begging Allah, you know, just that, like, you don't even have to say anything. It's like it's coming from your gut. when you're literally on the floor, rock bottom. Yeah.
What do you struggle with right now?
What do I struggle with right now? Right now, I struggle probably with establishing more of a balance. Life is very busy at the moment. I'm writing my next book. Solace is expanding and it's very, very busy. Got one child at university, one in college, one that's about to do his GCSEs. The youngest has just started secondary level. And both of them are home educated. Speaking engagements have increased a lot. And also my own personal development and my own studies within the dean. Life is just really busy. So I think the thing I'm struggling with right now is trying to balance all of that, but also giving myself time to look after myself and not letting myself go in the midst of all of that. That's my struggle.
I hope you're able to figure it out.
Inshallah. I mean to that.
What's your advice to anyone who wants to follow a path similar to yours?
Make dua. Make dua. Make dua. Make dua. Ask Allah to use you. That's the dua that I make, and that's actually in Ramadan reflections. Ask Allah to use you for His sake, and He will. But also, I would say, if you want to be like anyone, ask them about the highs and the lows of their journey, because sometimes it can appear to look, sparkly and great and perfect. No, any success, believe me, there has been a lot of struggle to get there. So, if anyone is kind of thinking, oh yeah, I'd like to maybe have a life like Aliyah, I'm not sure that you actually would if you were to know the reality. But then speak to anyone and just say to them, what is your life really like? What do you struggle with? What do you find hard? What do you find easy? What would you do differently? What would you do differently? Yeah.
What legacy do you hope to leave behind?
I'm a big believer in legacy. When I die, I want people to still benefit from anything that I have said, written, or done, whereby they are still falling in love with Allah Azza wa Jal, and they're still drawing closer to Him, and they're still discovering Him and finding solutions through their relationship with Him. That I hope is my legacy.
Thank you, Aliyah.
Thank you.
For writing such a book that has impacted me in a profound way that I did not expect. And this was a podcast that I felt I just had to do, because when my mom told me she was inviting you for the Muslim Family Summit, I was like a 5-year-old being told he was going to a toy store. I was as excited as a 5-year-old going to a toy store. I was so happy and thrilled to know that you were going to come. And I was like, Mama, even if it's an hour, I just need to have this podcast with this author that has impacted me in a way that I just can't thank you enough for. And I hope that book is able to reach a wider audience and it's able to have the kind of impact it did on me, because my life completely changed when I started or when I completed the book. Because I used to see dua as just this passive act that you do after salat or whenever you get a chance to do, but not something that you intentionally make the time for, because it's the thing that could completely change your life. I think Imam Umar Suleiman had a series called You're One Dua Away. And when he said that, I was like, oh, that aligns with Sister Aliyah's message, which is you're really one dua away from the things you want in this life.
Absolutely.
Or for the things that you need in this life. So, thank you.
You're very welcome. Jazakallah khair. I'm honored.
Thank you so much for listening. Before you go, I have two small favors to ask. First, if you found this episode helpful, please subscribe on your preferred platform so you'll be notified when the next episode is out. Second, if you know someone who could benefit from this, consider sharing it with them. The more people subscribe and share, the bigger the show gets and the more amazing guests we can invite to share their knowledge and insights with us. Thank you once again for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode.